I don't know why I'm singing Harry Potter. Welcome to the stream, everyone. How we doing? My name's Tommo. I am live, hence why it says Tommo live on screen. And we're here. How we doing, people? What's good? Hello, War, Evan, Professor, Wraith, Dave, Subham, Jake, Max, Hamza, Mohammed, the animator, Rick, Jeffrey, Ruben, Robert, Evan, Thomas, Nikesh, Melina, good to see you, Dave, Tommy, Lena, Bailey. Just give me a microphone down here, there we go. Welcome, everyone. There was no monkey, was there? It was sad. No monkey trophy at the French Grand Prix, but never mind. Still had the statue, so. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Hope we're all good. It's Monday, the Monday after the night before. 2022 French Grand Prix. And we're here to talk about it. I know, you know what, I felt like, yes, the Monkey Trophy was a bit weird, but it was special, it was unique. I really liked it, you know. I'd love to have that at home. I'd love to have that on the mantle. If I was a driver, I'd absolutely love having that on the mantelpiece. Better than the boring bloody Heineken, like extruded star ones that they have. You know what I mean? It was iconic. It was absolutely iconic, but things change, you know. So no monkey ruined it. I don't, you know, Thomas. I think you're spot on, mate. To be honest, I do. I really do. But anyway, enough of that. 2022 French Grand Prix. First and foremost, can you please give it out of 10? What we saying? What we saying out of 10? 10 being the perfect race delivered in every way, shape, or form. 1 being a terrible race. Terrible, boring race. Awful disgustingness, right? Now, obviously, Circuit Paul Ricard doesn't have the greatest reputation, which may in part be quite unfair, because 2019 was pretty boring, but last year was pretty good. Got a last lap overtake for the win. Wasn't the most exciting overtake, but it was an overtake for the win. Interesting. So a lot of 7s, a few 6s, a lot of 5s as well. You lot seem to be, I think 6 is probably, looking at what you lot are putting, there's probably more 7s than there are 5s. So I reckon you lot are probably averaging just over 6. Looking at live chat, right? I've got it on low latency as well, so we're pretty much live, okay? Well, look, in this regard, right? So I sat down at home with Hannah, watching the race. I enjoyed myself. You know, I thought it was a good race. In fact, I'd say it was good going on great. Did we get the battle for the lead that we were salivating towards the start? No. And we'll get into that, of course. But I thought there was action throughout the field. We had obviously the Russell Perez stuff towards the end. There seemed to be like a good amount of overtakes through the midfield. A few incidents. Moves trying to get pulled off. Not always getting pulled off. And then... So for me... And I try not to pull out 0.5s. Because I feel like that's sometimes a bit of a cop-out. But... I'll give this one a 7.5 out of 10. I thought it was good. So I've definitely rated it higher than most. I feel like I enjoyed it more than most people did. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good race. I thought it was a good race. Maybe. Sometimes you lot think I'm overrating. Sometimes you lot think I'm underrating. I thought it was a good race. I enjoyed it. And also, this image Doesn't this image look like it's like a rampaging monkey and the Red Bull lot are running away from it? Isn't this like, I felt, I was like, I need to use this image. Doesn't it look great? But anyway, no monkey. It would have been an 8 if there'd have been the monkey trophy, no question. But yeah, anyway, alternative universe where the monkey gains, becomes a sentient being and goes on a rampage through Circuit Paul Ricard. Probably why it's not going to return next year. Look, we haven't heard anything official, but there's been numerous clips. It's been talked about numerous times of people with the contacts to know. It seems that Paul Ricard, the French Grand Prix, will not be returning next year. That is not confirmed, but it seems pretty done. Which we'll talk about it. There's also talk of Spa, absolutely. There's also talk of Spa. We'll get into it. We'll discuss it. Actually, no. You know what? No. We'll talk about that now, because then we can talk about the actual race. So, I went through yesterday, right? And I wanted to look at. I would get it up screen share, but it'll just look ugly on the stream. I wanted to. Where is it? I was tweeting during the race. There we go. So this year, right, 22 races. By region, 11 out of 22 races are in Europe. 11 out of 22 this season are in Europe. 4 in North America, 1 in South America. It's only Brazil. 3 in the Middle East. That's not a continent, but a region as such. 2 in Asia, 1 in Australasia, none in Africa. Now, if you're going to have half the entire calendar in Europe and you want to expand the sport and get an African race, get more races in Asia, get more races in the Americas, it only makes sense to take races from Europe at the end of the day, right? So the fact that there's half of the races this year in Europe, right? There's clearly a heavy European bias, right? I just love saying that word, in the calendar, okay? That's, and fair enough. Like, you look at the sport historically, like, it's only just started to make inroads in markets outside of Europe, particularly obviously North America. It's always been big in South America. Obviously, if you're going to bring Kyalami in, look, I think the consensus is that 20, we should have been 23 races this year. Obviously, that was the initial plan, if it wasn't for Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And it's looking like it's going to be 23 next year. If you're gonna, you can't make like we talked about this, how probably 20 is the ideal number. 20, more than 22 seems a bit much for the teams, the personnel, right? But at the same time, you want to expand F1. You want the sport to be more global, and you've got half of all races in Europe. It makes sense that European races are going to be the ones that are more likely to be cut, and it's one of them that, look, Circuit Paul Ricard, I don't think many people love it. I can't imagine many people love Circuit Paul Ricard. I think it's okay. I don't think it's an awful. As time's gone on, I've kind of warmed to it a bit. I think a lot of people don't like it. We should have a French Grand Prix, no doubt, but we should also have a German Grand Prix, and we don't. And again, it's up to what should, because we know obviously a big reason F1 Liberty chooses certain locations is money. Okay, we know this. But if it's up to you or to me, right, to choose what the dream calendar should be, what should dictate why you pick certain tracks? Should it be certain locations? Should it be the quality of the track that's there? Should it be the potential fan base? Should it be the current fan base? Because a lot of the US is predicated on potential fan bases. Yes, the US audience has grown massively, but there's a lot more it can grow too. So it's like, if you're going to lose tracks from Europe to fit, because I want Kyalami. I, you know, for me, I would rather have a South African Grand Prix than a French Grand Prix, because we haven't seen a South African Grand Prix for so long. I'd love to have both, but it's not always necessarily realistic, right? And if the French Grand Prix was maybe a, you know, Manicourt, then perhaps people would be more open to it staying. Like, people typically love Spa, right? Spa's generally loved. So the idea of Spa going is not one that most people are on board with. That's it. Look, if the sport wants to expand into more regions, which I think it should. So I think there's an obligation for the sport to, you know, be in more. Say there's 23 races next year. Even with Le Castellet disappearing, that would still leave 10 European races of 23, which is still by far the biggest portion of any. It's an interesting thing to think about, you know. China's not confirmed for next year. Basically, from what I've heard, from what I've read, Spa, the future of Spa depends on whether China will renew or like will be on the calendar next year. Obviously, they're still really struggling with COVID stuff, hence why it's not on the calendar this year. And whether Kyalami does get over the line. Thank you, Ben, for the 179. They say Kyalami is unlikely as fail grade 1. Maybe, I don't know. I know it's not grade 1 as of yet, but they can potentially upgrade it to grade 1. So I think it predicates on them two. If we do have China and if we do have South Africa, then the chance of Spa staying, which is, you know, I'm not being funny, like if you go between Spa and Hungary, I'm getting rid of Hungary, you know. Being Spa on a lot of tracks, I'm getting rid of the other track. So it's difficult. Thank you, mate, Zion. Appreciate it, man, for the tenner. Thank you very much. They need to take the season, divide it evenly between regions, and then rotate circuits in and out to meet that region quota. So Europe will get less, but you get a French Grand Prix every other year. Yeah, I mean, yeah, rotating. Again, I think that, don't get me wrong, like the quality of circuit is important. And the thing is, right, if you want to expand into new regions, the easiest way to set up a Grand Prix is to do what they've done for like Saudi Arabia, right? Is to make a street circuit. That's the easiest way of doing it, rather than putting all the money into building a purpose-built track that won't necessarily like get the footfall for the remainder of the year. But then we don't just want loads of street circuits, you know, having these core, and that's why I think a track like Spa is so important, because it has so much character, so much history. Whether or not you think Belgium as a country deserves a Grand Prix, Spa needs to be in Formula 1. You know what I mean? Because it carries so much weight. But also other countries, you know, you can't imagine that many countries that aren't on the calendar at the moment who want to bring in Grand Prix, you know, the approach will be to build a street circuit. That's just incredibly likely, overwhelmingly likely. You're not going to get many more cotas where they build a track from scratch, primarily for the purpose of F1 and then to be used for other disciplines. But anyway, you know, there's no German Grand Prix either, so. But there you go. Anyway, right, Malaysia as well. Yeah, I'd love to see Sepang back. Love to, because again, at the minute we've only got obviously Japan, no Chinese Grand Prix this year. Japan, Singapore are the only two races in Asia, excluding the Middle East. Sepang would be fantastic. Well, thank you, Daniil, for the 100 ZARs. A World Championship needs to stop in at least one African location from South Africa with love. I agree. You know what actually makes a lot more sense as well with Yeah, because what's the... hang on. Right, what's the... Yeah. So, what also makes sense, a lot of sense with South African Grand Prix, is time zone. Because a typical F1 fan is operating on a European time zone, and South Africa is same time zone as France. It's like 1 hour, 1 hour ahead. So that will also bring a lot more global audience, because most F1 fans are conditioned to, you know, either getting up at ungodly hour if you're in Australia or in the States, or, you know, watching it European time, and that fits that time zone. So that makes a lot of sense with Kyle Army. So I'm sure they'll get Kyle Army over the line. I would be incredibly surprised if that's not on the calendar next year. And thank you, Alberto, as well, for the $10 dollars, not euro. Think Mexico City will stay on the calendar? I hope so. I hope so. It's not my favourite track, Mexico City, but again, I think having a presence in Mexico, I think I'd love to see one other. You know, I think you know, we've got enough North American races now, for sure, especially with Vegas. More than enough North American races. One more South American, an African race, another Asian race. Again, like Sepang would be great. But I think also, yeah, maybe probably are, you know, if you're only going to have 22 races, then you're probably going to have to take a couple away from Europe to facilitate that. Okay, right. Anyway, talked all about that now. Right, so that's done. Lovely. Now, let's talk about the French Grand Prix, which, of course, was won by Maximilian Verstappen ahead of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. Double Mercedes podium. Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, fastest lap, charged from the back. And Fernando, Lando, Ocon, Ricciardo and Stroll rounding out the points. Okay, right. That's what happened. Winners and losers time, people. W's and L's. Who, yesterday, not just yesterday, over the course of the weekend, obviously yesterday is the most important thing though. Biggest winners, biggest losers, biggest W's, biggest L's. Team, driver. We'll start with mine and then we'll look at yours, okay? Because I put the poll out last night on Twitter, on YouTube community. So we've got about almost 3,500 votes. So I did mine last night because I always try and make sure I'm not obscured, affected by what you lot say, okay? Because I'm my own man. I'm my own independent man. I don't need you lot, all right, telling me what to do or think or say. Lars, thank you very much for the $9.99, man. Appreciate it. Can you do a video about Aki and his impact on F1? Google him if you don't know. Interesting. A video like that, I would definitely need to... Yeah, like you say, he's kind of comparable to Adrian Newey. So it's one of them where I probably have to like title that in such a way, like the mystery man behind Mika Hakkinen, Sebastian Vettel. And that's actually quite a good title. I could picture the thumbnail. You've got like Mika Hakkinen, Kimi Räikkönen, Seb there, and then this like figure behind, right? Like it's like a figure with like a question mark. And then the man behind the... I actually really like that. If you like that, let me know in the comments below. If the top rated comment is related to it, then I will look into it. That's all I'm promising. But thank you, Lars. I appreciate that. Thank you, Anthony, as well, for the $2.79. Morning from Canada. Love your content. Keep it up. Thank you, Anthony. Where are you in Canada? Great place. Oh, and also... mate, honestly, right? It was actually so sad. So yesterday, we're at Hannah's dad's, and I saw on the news that there's wildfires in Yosemite. Sorry to go off track, right? If you've not been keeping up, me and Hannah were in Yosemite. Wait, what month is it? So we were in Yosemite earlier this month, or late last month. No, we were there 4th of July. So 4th of July, we were at Yosemite National Park, and there's wildfires there, literally like exactly where we were staying, and it's like pretty crazy. So if anyone's there, like, stay safe. And mate, it's horrible. It's so sad. Like where we stand had to close because firefighters are using it to try and put out the wildfires. So it's pretty sketchy. Yeah. Hello, Hixie. Good to see you, mate. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Noah, as well, for the 10 Canadian. In the last 10 years of me watching F1, there's only been 2 races that have made me cry. 2018 Hockenheim and now 2022 Paul Ricard. I'm assuming you're a Ferrari fan, Noah. Pray that Ferrari doesn't do to Charles like they did to Seb. Well, as much as Ferrari haven't covered themselves in glory this year, it does seem that this one was firmly on Charles. But we'll get into it. Okay, right, yes. W's and L's. Here are mine. Driver of the weekend, I've given it to Lewis Hamilton. Honourable mention, Fernando Alonso. I think Lewis and Fernando actually had very similar weekends. Both strong in qualifying, both moved up at the start, and then both kind of controlled their position from there on. Sainz, obviously great move through the pack. Didn't really do anything wrong. You know, not much negative to say about Carlos's performance. He got the 5-second penalty. That was all on Ferrari as well. So, you know, maybe there was a podium on the table there if the strategy is different. Maybe, hard to say. And I put in Latifi, right, because Nicky's pace compared to what it usually is. He was in he was up there with Magnussen, right? He had a little run in with Magnussen. He was there. His pace was there. His pace wasn't that far off of Alex's. Okay? Meme all you like, right? Shout out Nicholas Latifi. Do I actually think he had a better weekend than Max Verstappen? No. But I think that Latifi deserves a shout out, okay? So I'm giving him a shout out. Team W the weekend, Mercedes. I think that's a kind of no-brainer. You know, super consistent this year in terms of their engine anyway. The three teams with the most laps run are all Mercedes engine teams, which says a lot. And the 3 least are all Ferrari engine teams. Alpine, again, Alonso kind of best of the rest if we're going to put Mercedes kind of in that uncanny valley between Red Bull, Ferrari and the rest. Ocon as well, if he doesn't get that penalty, if he doesn't cock up at the start, maybe that's a 6-7. But all in all, good weekend for Alpine. Erwin, I literally just mentioned Max. Did you just turn up? I literally just mentioned Max. McLaren, I'll put McLaren, look, both in the points, 2nd consecutive point scoring finish for Daniel Ricciardo. Big upgrades seem to make a difference because, you know, for me, the Alpine's been clear of the McLaren this season. Like that car package, I think Ocon should be ahead of Norris. That's why I've not been quite as impressed with Ocon, because I do think that package has been better, and I think Fernando's shown the performance in that package. I think now the McLaren's much closer to the Alpine. I think it's good for McLaren. They've brought this upgrade in before the summer break, and it seems to have made a difference because they were very similar yesterday. But it's a step in the right direction for McLaren, and I think Daniel wasn't that far off Lando. Only, 10th and a half in qualifying, and reasonably a bit slower, yes, but not a mile off. So all in all, pretty good for McLaren. I'm saying that's the mine, you know, considering where they were in qualifying. They don't seem to have quality pace, but in the race, they're much better. Kind of opposite of Williams. Williams seems to have a bit more quality pace, but then race pace doesn't come through. And to almost get both cars into the points, that's pretty W-worthy for Aston Martin as far as I'm concerned. Alpine is clear at McLaren. You look over the course of the year, if Fernando doesn't get the terrible luck that he got, Alpine are quite comfortably clear of McLaren points-wise. Because McLaren have been very hot and cold this year. Alpine have been like consistently good, hence why Ocon's scored so many points. McLaren have had like Canada and Bahrain where they were nowhere, but Alpine have been way more consistent. Driver L of the weekend, Charles Leclerc. I mean, of course, Pierre Gasly, not a great weekend. Tried to make a move on Alex, lost 3 positions because he cocked it up. went out in Q1, out qualified by his teammate. Not a great weekend for Pierre. Joe took out Schumacher. Not great. And Sergio just didn't seem on it, did he? To lose place to Lewis at the start, and then also to lose out to George by the end. I think if Lewis doesn't get past Checo, I think if Checo holds position, he holds on to P2, as far as I'm concerned. But because he was stuck behind Lewis for so long, the impact that has on his tyres, I do think he had more pace than Lewis, but because Lewis was able to get ahead, he was able to. And then he got caught by napping by Russell as well. And lost to Sainz. Yeah, lost out to Sainz as well. Not a great weekend for Sergio Perez. Team L of the weekend is Ferrari. Driver L should be Russell, just for whining. Imagine if I divvied out L's of the weekend for drivers complaining. They would just all be there most weekends. Team L of the weekend has to be Ferrari. You know what, like, it's easy to say in hindsight that they made the wrong decision. Maybe Sainz's tyres would have blown up and he wouldn't have made the end of the race if they didn't pit. But there's a time, Ferrari. There's a place. There's a pit stop release that gives you a 5-second penalty. It's not a 5-second stop go, it's just a 5-second penalty. There were numerous things that, once again, unfortunately, reared their head at Ferrari. And not ideal. Haas missed out massively with Leclerc's crash. They went for a 2-stop early and that blew up in their face. Alfa Romeo, no pace. Paceless. Bottas still has more points than Alonso. Yet, nowhere. And then Williams, it was looking so promising in practice. And even in qualifying, Alex got into Q2. Only just, to be fair. Nowhere. Okay. They're my winners and losers. I did these last night. Polled you lot about 15 minutes before we went live. I closed the poll, updated the graphic, and all I can say is that you lot copied me, all right? You lot copied my homework. Pathetic. 39% of the vote went to Lewis Hamilton, Driver W of the weekend. 27% Verstappen, 22% Sainz, 5% Alonso. I'm surprised actually the gap between Hamilton and Alonso is that big, because I don't think Alonso did any. Alonso and Hamilton had very similar races. You know what I mean? Fair enough, Verstappen, he won the race. 90% Mercedes, Team W of the weekend. Red Bull 5, Alpine 4, McLaren getting a few votes as well. 80% Leclerc. Driver L, Perez 7, Gasly 4, Joe 2. And then Team L, Ferrari 65% of the vote, Haas 16, Alfa Romeo 10, Alpha Tauri. Fair shout. I think Tsunoda was on for a good result if he didn't get punted by Ocon though. 8% of the vote from 3,430 of you. Right, I don't usually like coffee, but I found this iced coffee at Tesco in the meal deal. Arctic Cafe Latte. It is actually really nice. And I've still got a bit of a bad tummy, and I suppose coffee probably isn't the best thing for it, but I just felt I fancied it. You know what I mean? I fancied it. Right. Randy, thank you for the $4.99, mate. What is your opinion on Perez-Russell incident? What if everyone does overtakes like that? We'll get into it, Randy. Don't you worry, pal, but thank you very much for the support. I do appreciate it. Because you've done, we'll talk about that before we talk about Leclerc. But before we talk about any of that, this is how the championship stands. After 12 of 22 rounds, Stroll jumps Albon now. They were both level on 3. Now Stroll has 4. Verstappen's lead is now 63 points. Woo. 63 points. Checo 7. Only 7 behind Leclerc now. And Sainz only 1 ahead of Russell. So good damage limitation from Mercedes at the end of the day. But again, when you look at those points, like, you got to say that Mercedes look, when you look at the points here, it looks like the Mercedes are closer to the Ferrari and Red Bull than they are the rest. I think the opposite has been true for most of the season, but obviously they've been so consistent, they've been able to capitalise. But there you go. See, Bottas still 9 points clear of Alonso because of those early season dubs. But yeah, I mean, it's looking very good for Max now, isn't it? I mean, Hungary, you should be a Ferrari track, you'd think. But as long as Max can just keep picking up P2s, keep being there, either winning or just finishing behind Leclerc, he can probably afford to play the numbers game. Because what the difference between first and second is 7 points. It's 63-point gap. So that's 9 races. Exactly 9 races of finishing second instead of first. And then that puts them level on points. Well, there's only 10 races to go. So if Verstappen plays the numbers, the championship's his. You know what I mean? But obviously fastest lap points could come into it. Who knows? But, you know, Max is in a very good place. Max is in a very good place. No doubt. Thank you. I have no idea how to say your name, but thank you for the $5 Aussie. By the way, considering how good Alonso is, do you find it strange that there was this conversation going on with Otmar wanting to swap him with Piastri? I don't think it's a strange conversation. I think you can, you know, Alpine want to keep Piastri for the future. And also, Ocon's still only 26. You know, Fernando is driving at an incredible level. They do have to think long-term as well. You know, all of this new regulation, they want to be fighting for a world championship. They're not going to have a car to fight for a world championship for a, you know, next season would be the absolute earliest. And I don't see them taking that much of a step up. It's maybe like a 23-24 thing. So they need to be honest with themselves. How many more years are they going to get out of Alonso? He's making it very difficult because he's driving at such a ridiculous level, but they need to think long term. I don't think it's a strange, you know, I think the ideal for Alpine is that they keep the driver lineup as it is and then get Piastri a seat while keeping him an Alpine driver, because also I don't think they can't afford to lose such a young talent as Piastri. You know, back-to-back F2, F3, that's Leclerc, that's Russell levels. So the potential is there for sure. But yeah, we'll see. Magic Alonso. Magic. But yeah, I mean, I've said many times, it's just a joke of Fernando's longevity. It really is. Anyway, right, so let's talk a little bit, and we're not going to talk about Ferrari. We're actually going to talk about, actually no, I'm going to go back to the main screen. Okay, I'm going to talk about Russell Perez, right? Thank you, Alex, for the $5. With Charles, mistake, Max could DNF twice and Charles could win with the fastest lap. Max was still had the lead over him. Ouch. That's what I mean. 63-point gap is nothing to turn your nose up at. Right, I'm going to make a poll. Who was Russell right? I'm just gonna ask, was Russell right? So obviously Russell goes for the move up the inside of Sergio Perez. Russell, as far as he's concerned, he's got enough alongside, and he, you know, Checo cuts the corner because there's nowhere for him to go, and they stay, you know, Perez stays ahead. Russell's having a right little moan up on the radio, which, look, I mean, if we're gonna something as well, right? And don't get me wrong, right? I was laughing at how much, right? How much George was moaning. And he was like, oh, I was actually this far alongside. Oh, if you look at article 7.4627889. It was funny, right? And I get that people clowning on George, right, for having a moan. But let's be honest, right? If we're going to have a pop at drivers for moaning, you can have a pop at Verstappen. You're telling me Max Verstappen doesn't moan. Hamilton. You're telling me Hamilton doesn't moan. Right? Pretty much everyone is guilty of it. Even when they're in the wrong. Because that's what F1 drivers do, right? They're gonna... very rarely do you get a driver, unless it's after the fact, admit that they did wrong. Yeah, Leclerc doesn't tend to moan that often. Ricciardo doesn't tend to moan that often, right? Don't get me wrong, but come on, vast majority of F1 drivers will, if they think they're in the right, which even if they don't think they're in the right, that's the thing, right? Even if you don't think you're in the right, like, obviously, if you're in that position, you're gonna lie to yourself and everyone else and try and get your position overturned just to get in the steward's heads, aren't you? Right? So whatever, right? They're all whiny little bitches, right? Accept it. They're F1 drivers, okay? They're all guilty of it. Most of them. Yeah, Charles just moans about himself. So fundamentally, I don't have too much of an issue with that. 80% of you don't think Russell was right. And I agree, right? And you can talk about blah, 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 right? All these like new racing rules, right? For me, I don't really care about that. When I look at racing and I look at racing incidents, I judge it not based off, oh, the rules say this. I judge it based off what I think the racing should be, what I think should and shouldn't be allowed. For me, George is more than entitled to make that move, right? He's more than entitled to send one up the inside. And I think he does a pretty good job, right? He's braking very late, right? And he does get a reasonable amount of the way alongside. The thing is, though, he's never ahead of Checo. And the momentum he's carrying, because he hits this inside curb, which is quite raised, and it kind of partially bottoms out the car, which is possibly why Ocon spun into Tsunoda. It just gives Checo nowhere to go. And Checo's ahead still. So, Checo has to cut the corner, has to carry on. And then they just crack on as they were. I don't think there's a penalty there. Because there's runoff that Checo can just carry, and they can just carry on. It's fine. I think Russell's entitled to make the move. Checo couldn't have done anything else. Carried on as was. George is going to moan. Fair enough. So I agree that George was wrong. His assertion was wrong for me. Right? That's not why. I thought it was fine. I thought what happened was fine. There was no interference from the stewards. Just crack on, right? That's my opinion on it. That is my take. That is my take. George Russell is the kind of guy to moan when he's in the wrong. And yeah, look, obviously, yeah, if that's exactly as you say, sword, right? If it's not an open track and there is like a wall there, then if there's a wall there, then again, and I'm not looking at, the rules say this, right? This is what I think racing should be, right? If there's a wall there, George puts Checo into the wall, and he's a good amount alongside, but he's not fully alongside. He's not anywhere. He's like maybe, I don't know, 60% alongside, I would say. And then that's clearly on George as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, Checo was right to do what he did, but isn't it similar to Abu Dhabi when Max sends it down the inside to Lewis? Well, no, because Max sent it down the inside, but he was he angled his car. He had stronger tyres, and he could get his car into a position where he was ahead of Lewis. So we're not talking about Abu Dhabi 2021. Don't try and trick me into talking about Abu Dhabi 2020. Wouldn't that be judging based on outcome instead of action? Oh yeah, no, that's what I mean. I'm just saying you define the track limits. Like I'm saying, it would be if there was a wall there, then George would be at fault because, as far as I'm concerned, because he's not ahead. There's not a wall there, and it's fine. They can just carry on, and I'm cool with that. I don't think George should get a penalty. But anyway. Thank you, Alex, for the $5 Dollars. I moan playing F1 2022 when things go wrong, so I can't complain about Russell. Before, like, this thing, right? They're just human. People moan, right? They're driving racing cars, right? They're gonna moan sometimes, right? And you can critique them for it, but don't get too deep, all right? Because do you really think you'd be better yourself? Probably not. Drivers should get penalties for complaining. Change my mind. The crying awards. You know the Autosport awards. They should have an award for most tears. And the award for most tears of 2022 is George Russell, France 2022. Well done, George. Well done. Most tears. Congratulations. Safety car call because you're crying. Okay, so that's spoken about. We'll rewind. Look, we've got to talk about Leclerc, haven't we? We've got to talk about Charles Leclerc. It was all looking great, wasn't it? It was all looking. You know. Okay, I've been very open. I between Max and Leclerc, I would rather see Leclerc win the championship. Max has already got one now. You know, I really like Charles. I really like Max, but I think that as well, Ferrari winning a championship for the first time for so long as well. I'd love to see that. I think the Tifosi, you've been denied success for too long. The amount of money, the amount of resource, the amount of time the team has had to succeed, yet it hasn't. I think money for the fans. You know what I mean? I think you got the best fan base of any team in F1 clear, right? I'd love to see Ferrari win the championship. It was looking good, wasn't it? Qualifying, great job from Sainz, great job from Ferrari to maximise and get Leclerc. Maybe it wouldn't have made a difference. Maybe it did. Get a bit of slipstream. Played it well, right? Happy days. Cool, good. Race starts. First stint. I think Charles does a really good job. Like defending that position, holding off Max. Max spends most of the time within a second, most of the time within DRS. And with that straight line advantage in the Red Bull, you think, oh, he's probably going to get past, but he doesn't. I did wonder, why was Max staying so close to Charles in that early stint? I feel like it would have made more. I'm sure there's a reason, right? I'm just me sat at home. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sure there's a reason, but it felt like it would have made more sense for Max to maybe sit, a couple seconds behind, put a bit less heat through his tyres, consolidate, save up a bit of battery, and then go for a send. But I don't know, whatever. Obviously, Max does the earlier pit stop. Ferrari seems to be going for a one stop, and that's the thing. LM, he was putting the pressure on, and Charles wasn't cracking, right? And that's all well and good. And it's funny, isn't it? Because when he's got the big Red Bull in his rearview mirrors, and he doesn't crack. You know what I mean? Like you would think that if Charles is going to crack and make a mistake, it's when you've got the Red Bull right up your chuff. Yeah? Like when Sainz was chasing Verstappen at Canada. Like Max just didn't put a foot wrong. Big Ferrari in his rearview mirrors. Not a foot wrong. Boom. And then in clear track on that long right-hander, and that's the thing, right? So that long right-hander, whatever turn it is, I don't know, corner numbers and names, whatever. Long right-hander, Red Bull and Ferrari both been taking a super wide line because they've got the performance in their car to carry more speed around it. And the way I see it, he just carries a bit too much speed, considering his tyre life. And I feel like he just dips his wheels onto that blue stuff, just the outside, which then loses him traction. High speed corner, maybe wind is a factor to an extent as well. And he ended up in the wall. People, there's conspiracy theories knocking about Ferrari, the throttle, blah, blah, blah. no, it seemed pretty clear to me at the time. Like he's trying to reverse out, and the throttle's it's not picking up. He's obviously caused too much damage, or got wedged into the tyre barrier, because he didn't hit it at a huge pace. Like the accident wasn't a super high speed accident by the time he got to the barriers. That's it. Race over for Charles Leclerc. Thank you, the Terse First, for the 200 rupees. Recommend watching Charlie White in press conference 2017. Stress is on lasting advantage, i.e. track limits. Don't want to have a light one as lead to F1 being in space we don't want to be. Go today. Rest in peace, Charlie White. He was quite the race director, wasn't he? Now, Charles has admitted fault, and you look at the throttle trace, you know, all of the evidence suggests that Charles just made a mistake. You can want to believe that Ferrari were at fault for this, but it wasn't. It was Charles made a mistake. He carried too much pace, whatever, dropped it. It's on him. That's the sad reality, right? He's in a position of leading the race, potentially making a one-stop work to win the race, or at least finish second. Makes a mistake, drops it, and this is part of what something I love about Charles is he will put his hands up. He will take responsibility when he has to, and he is very self-critical. He's very on himself. He's always been like that. And it's one of them. Right, so I shared this on Twitter, partly because, you know, so anyone who's watched my mid-season report, okay, I got quite a bit of flack, all right, because I said that over the first half of the season, I've been more impressed, taking into context that it's his first season at the team. I'm including that context. I've been more impressed by George Russell, first season at Mercedes, than I have been by Charles Leclerc. And look, obviously this is after that now, right? So that's irrelevant. But I did say something in that video that I think now is very prompt, appropriate. Okay? I said this in the video. Let me just go over here. Okay? Let me just go over here. That illustrated that. Do I think Charles is 100% there? 100% within himself package? I think he's like 99. Who's that guy? He's gone. He's gone. Now, Charles Leclerc is clearly an incredibly talented young driver. Okay? Clearly. There's no question. The thing is, right, nobody, doesn't matter who you are, Sebastian Vettel, Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, you go through development as a driver when you jump into F1, right? You make mistakes, you learn from them. Charles is in his, so what, he raced, is it 2018, Alfa Romeo, 18, 19, 20, 21. This is his 5th season in Formula 1. Max Verstappen is in his 8th season in Formula 1. So he's got 3 years on Charles. And it wasn't that long ago, right? That the Crashstappen meme was a thing. Max was 100% guilty of overdriving, pushing too hard, taking undue risk. The talent was clearly there, obvious for all to see. But he would sometimes overstep the mark. Sometimes go a little bit too hard. Right, performance-wise. Now, I think Max Verstappen now is the best driver in Formula 1. I think his ability to extract pace consistently and not make unforeseen errors is insane, right? I think he's operating at an insane level. I think that Charles still has... I said in that video, I think he's 99% of the way there. I don't think he's 100% of the way there. I think that there's more in himself that he can do. Not to extract more pace. I don't think the pace is a problem. It's just those are the moments, those are the high pressure moments where the best deliver. And Charles wasn't able to in that instance. He's still got loads of time in F1 to develop, move forward, grow. But I said it then, and I'm saying it now. He's almost there. He just needs to that. There's just something that's not quite. Because pace-wise, I think he can match Max. But Max now is in a place that he can deliver that pace consistently, just like Lewis Hamilton's been able to do for the last 8 years, right? Deliver that consistently, not make unforced errors. Don't get me wrong, all drivers make errors, right? Max went off at Spain into the gravel. But you know what? That's also one of them where, well, Carlos, like, it was clearly a corner where you can take that corner. You take that corner 10 times in exactly the same way and you get a dodgy bit of wind, which I think clearly Carlos and Max got on that corner. I don't think the driver can be expected to... I don't put too much on him or Carlos for that one. This one, I think, Charles just took a bit too much speed, went a bit wide, and Sag. So, yeah, look, I've got a lot of love for Charles, you know this. He's an incredibly talented young man, an incredible person for the sport. I really do. And I think his time for a championship will come. He's too talented for it to not. I'm just gutted that what transpired because you saw it at Imola earlier this year. We saw it yesterday. That in those high pressure moments, not all the time, but enough of the time, it goes wrong. And Charles has to take responsibility for that. But there you go. That's it. That's it on Charles. Also, Perez getting mugged by Russell. Now, I was chatting to Allez earlier about this. I didn't know. So apparently I noticed this as well when I was watching, right? You know, it says safety car, VSC coming in. When it says that, there's then a random time after that, but it's usually not that long after. It says safety car ending, because it's saying safety car ending, that the safety car ends, the VSC ends. But then there was some kind of technical glitch. It showed it again. Perez was obviously a bit confused, like what's going on. George was clearly just like dialed in on that, like waiting for that green light, and caught Sergio napping. I don't think George gets past Sergio if he doesn't get the move done there, because Perez was able to come back at him. So I think Perez, would have stayed ahead. Unfortunately, and yes, there was an issue with the thing, but at the end of the day, it's the same for everyone. And Perez was caught napping. I think that's the fairest way of looking at it. And George did a great job getting that position. Getting that position in the end. If George isn't so on it and so opportunistic, then he doesn't get that place. So, it was like 44 seconds, wasn't it? Something like that. Crazy. But yeah. All right. Okay. Cool. Let's go through then team by team, starting with Ferrari, I guess, because we've already talked about Charles. That's kind of done. Carlos Sainz. It's so annoying because it was like he was saying before, wasn't he? He was like, he felt like this was probably his strongest track of the season in this Ferrari, performance-wise, and looked very, very quick in qualifying, even though it didn't end up mattering. I just think that he did a great job coming through. I think that Ferrari, come on, man, fair. Maybe his tyres would have blown up before he reached the end, right? You can't say that wouldn't happen. I can't say it wouldn't have happened, right? No one knows. But what you do know is that you don't start instructing your driver to, when he's beginning a battle for position, it's like you make that call a lot earlier or you don't make it at all. That's the way I see it. And yeah, maybe Ferrari were feeling like overly cautious. Pit him earlier then. Not when he's getting into the dirty air, Perez getting into a scrap where he's inevitably going to lose time. And they'd already cocked it up by releasing him in front of Albon. That was such a sketchy pit release. That was an awful pit release. The gap between Albon's front wing and that McLaren mechanic was marginal. Yeah, and then he gets past Perez and then just boxes anyway. And they're like giving him instructions to box when he's scrapping. It's just like, it's just silly. Like, it really is. And you got to wonder that, like, these things keep happening. And again, yes, the scrutiny is higher of Ferrari, but it's because they're fighting for a championship and it keeps happening. These questionable things where the drivers are openly disagreeing with the team doesn't happen anywhere near as often with the other team fighting for the championship, Red Bull, because there's that trust there. And you feel like something's got to change at Ferrari because they've got a package now to fight, clearly. They've got a car that's good enough. The engine reliability might not be there, but it makes sense to develop a rocket engine because with this engine freeze, you are allowed to change reliability related things with your engine. You're not allowed to change performance things. So it makes sense that Ferrari have built a bit of a rocket ship that blows up every now and then because they will hopefully be able to find ways of dialing that reliability into it. But you got to wonder, like, with the team that's in place, they've built a great car, but the execution, for it to be so consistently problematic, they need to be like scalping some Red Bull like people or something. I don't know. I know Nico Rosberg said the same thing. Something's got to change at Ferrari, and I agree. I think something has to change. I really do. Ferrari is the most consistent team, consistently hilarious, and the worst possible type of hilarity at that. But yeah, Sainz, great drive. Hopefully he can carry that confidence into Hungary, where again it should suit this car. So I'm hopeful that Ferrari will have a good weekend because we want to see a championship battle going down to the last race. I'd like to see Leclerc win. If Verstappen wins, cool. I'll be happy for him. But I just want it to go down to the last race. Just like I said last year, all I want, my number one priority is it goes down to the last race. Who wins? If you could tell me now, Leclerc wins the championship with 3 races to go, or Max wins the championship at the last race, I'd pick Max wins the championship last race. You know what I mean? Because the show, the spectacle, that would be more enjoyable. But yeah, it's a mentality thing, isn't it? I don't know, Drew Seth. I don't know, mate. Do you think Merc can be as fast as Red Bull in Hungary? I'm not really sure because obviously Hungary is such a tight, twisty track. I don't really know how that sits with the Mercedes, to be honest. I'm not really sure off the top of my head. Okay, Ferrari is done. Next, let's talk about Red Bull. Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from Max. Obviously, he was behind Leclerc. Went for the 2-stop. Didn't really do too much wrong. Obviously, didn't put it on pole, but he doesn't seem to have to put it on pole. He gets more wins from Leclerc poles than Leclerc does. So maybe that's a strategy to come see. I think that Max didn't need to drive at 100%, especially after Leclerc's blowing up. I just think he drove a solid race. I said this in Talking Points, which is going out fairly soon. It's like, Max, there's been numerous times over the last couple of seasons that Max has made results look easy, boring. And yes, a lot of that is relying on other teams' incompetence, but a lot of the time that is because it's just a very tight ship there, tightly run thing. And if you can make something that's difficult look easy, then, you know, I feel like I'm going to sneeze. There's a sneeze just here. It's right here. It's right here. And then, yeah, Perez, not a great race for him. Quali pace was good. He was only a tenth and a half off of Max. I was like, oh, go on, Checo. Turned it around. But, again, getting jumped by Hamilton at the start just completely ruined his race. So, yeah, not great from Checo. But all in all, good points for Red Bull. Mercedes, yeah, I mean, look, again, they might not have the out-and-out performance, but Mercedes are clearly consistent, able to deliver points. You know, only 40-something off of Ferrari, I think, in Constructors now. When the pace isn't there, if you can be consistent and pick up the pieces, then you're onto a good thing. And, you know, Mercedes is going to be able to fight for a title. I think it's too late for that for sure, especially the gap that Max has opened up now. You know, if it was just if Max didn't exist, yeah, I mean, it was just Leclerc, Perez, Sainz, I think you could say, yeah, Mercedes. But I just think Max is fair enough. Mercedes overcoming the delta and maybe getting some results over Perez, over Sainz, over Leclerc. But over Max in a Red Bull that's clearly working for him well, I think that's too much. Too much to ask for. Not much more to say. Again, look, I think George had a good race. Like, yes, it was. Yeah, I think it was fine. Like, he's entitled to make the move on Perez. Didn't come off. Fine. Crack on. Yeah, he moaned a bit, but all in all, like, I think he did an alright race. Right, next, let's talk about Alpine, because they were the next team up, weren't they? Alpine. Yeah, look, I think that this race kind of illustrated my point on Ocon that I made in my mid-season report. You know, you got points again. Great. I think there's more performance in that car than Ocon's been delivering so far this season. I think that Alpine is a better package over the course of the whole year. Maybe not right now, because I think that upgrade has really helped the McLaren. But over the course of you look at the first 11 races of the year, you know, you include McLaren's absolute disaster class in Bahrain and Canada. I think Alpine have had more performance, more consistent total performance over the whole calendar, you know. And Alonso, great job. Again, jumped Norris at the start, which was super important. Was able to manage that gap. You know, like he said on the radio, great Fernando shithousery. This is what I like him for, right? You know, keeps that gap, manages it. Kind of like at Monaco. Everyone else is at the other side of the track and he's just holding up the queue. Everyone destroying their tyres behind him. Listen, you might not like it, but it's a strategy that works. So yeah, I think, and he jumped Russell. That's a good point as well. Fernando Alonso, fantastic again. Ocon, he was at fault for punting Tsunoda, which I was gutted about because I'd love to see how Tsunoda's race would have turned out. Drove a solid race after that, got past Ricciardo in the end. Again, I don't think Ocon's doing a bad job. I think Ocon's doing a very good job. But Fernando Alonso is Fernando Alonso. And again, how you rate Ocon depends how good you think Fernando is. If you think Fernando's at his prime, still at delivering the levels he was in his prime, then Ocon's doing a very, very... Ocon's like occasionally out-qualifying him, occasionally out-racing him. That's really good. If you think Alonso's like good but not great, then that reflects less favourably on Esteban, doesn't it? But he got points. I'm happy for him on his home Home weekend. Great helmet design as well for Esteban Ocon. Great lid. Phenomenal lid. Phenomenal lid. Anyway. Right, that's Alpine. McLaren. Yeah, good step forward. Good step forward upgrade-wise. Again, Ricciardo, much closer to Lando than he's... Still behind Lando. Which isn't... Yeah, look, he's a 8-time race winner. Like, you know, it's a step in the right direction. It's still not anywhere near where he wants to be. So, there's still a lot more work to do there. But, promising. Promising. And great race from Lando. Like, he did, no, to be fair, actually, at the start, he lost a few positions, didn't he? Lost position at the start. Not great. Maybe Ocon should have finished ahead of him. If Ocon hadn't punted Tsunoda, then maybe Ocon finishes ahead of Lando. But, yeah, I think it's a step in the right direction for McLaren. But it's still... Again, you look at how close McLaren and Ferrari were last year, and now look at how far apart they are. It's not great, is it? It's not great. Not waiting for your UK PM predictions. I could not care less. Yeah, it's 2 or 3 he lost at the start. Because I know, well, Ricciardo was right on his chuff, wasn't he? Yeah, because Lando started 5th. Ricciardo started 9th. Yeah, and then... Yeah, I'm sure he lost 3. Right, anyway. McLaren's done. Teams we haven't talked about so much. Oh, God, I haven't even talked about the Vettel-Stroll thing, have I? Let's talk about Aston Martin, then. Okay, right. Here we go. Here we go. Right. Was Stroll wrong to his defence against Vettel? Here we go. Here we go. Aston Martin. Was Lance Stroll wrong in his defence against Sebastian Vettel? Right? If you're living under a rock and you didn't see what happened, basically, because they showed it on the live feed as well, Lance and Seb were scrapping for the final points position. Teammates. Vettel set up a cutback. Would have pulled it off. In the final corner. Obviously, Lance knew this. So Lance went deep. Seb set up the cutback. But anticipating this, Lance took the turn super tight and didn't give Seb the space that he anticipated would be there to make the cutback. So Stroll kept the position and Seb gave it one of the classic hands, and Lance kept the position. A lot of controversy around this afterwards, of course. Numerous things. Their teammates scrapping for 10th place. Is it worth it, I guess? Because I do think, who out-qualified who? What was the... hang on. Because Lance made up like 5 places at the start. Lance had a cracking start. But I can't actually remember... Hang on. What was the qualifying results? Yeah, Vettel got into Q2. Lance went out in Q1. But Lance made a great start. Also, I think Vettel got caught up in the whole Ocon Tsunoda thing. And I think that's where, I might be wrong. I think that's where Lance got ahead of Seb. And Seb definitely had more pace in the race. There's no question, right? Seb definitely had more pace. Hence, again, why he was able to, because Seb lucked pretty badly on the old safety car, and again got caught up with Ocon. So Seb definitely had more pace, but Stroll got himself into P10. Great start, superb, well done, Lance. Let's have a look. 57% of you think Stroll was fine doing what he did. So 43% of you think Stroll was wrong in his defence of Sebastian Vettel. Now, I guess like it's one of them that the argument I understand the most is that, you know, it's your teammate, you're scrapping, there's a potential for a crash on the final corner, and there's like 1 point scoring position. Is it really worth it? Now, again, talking points earlier, Aldas made a great point. You know, Lance clearly has a chip on his shoulder. And what I mean by that is that, you know, he knows the noise around him in F1 and his dad owning the team. And, you know, he wants to prove himself, prove to everyone, as much as himself, that he deserves to be there. And being ahead of Sebastian Vettel, he's not going to... You can't expect Lance to just let him past. Okay? Oh, yeah, Aston didn't double stack. They didn't double stack, I think, because they would have got caught out. Like, they didn't have time to prep to do it properly. But anyway, now Seb's lining up a perfectly good cutback. Lance reads it and positions his car to prevent the cutback. Like, I'm sorry, but that move, if that happens anywhere else, whether it's for the lead at the back between non-teammates, again, maybe, yeah, because they're teammates, you can be like, you don't need to race each other so hard. Classic Albon line. But for me, it's fine. I don't understand. Like, I get that, you know, like, it's frustrating for the driver behind. But people talking about a penalty. Penalty for what? He didn't brake check him for... Like, people say who brake checked him. Are you mad? No, he just went... You're entitled to carry whatever speed you want through the corner. If someone's doing a cut, lining up a switchback, holding the apex is a perfectly legal... That's a racing... That's racing. That's what you can do in racing. That's allowed. If you anticipate a cutback, park it on the apex, you can do that. That's fine. That's fair game. He didn't swerve last moment. He didn't. He's turning. He's turning. It's you can't say he swerved. He's in front. He's fully in front, and he's turning into the corner. Yes, he turns more than he needs to because he's defending the inside line. He's entitled to do that. That's racing. And this is one of them as well. Like, you can say it's a bit much because it's teammates, right? But at the end of the day, there's no doubt that if the shoe's on the other foot and these... Because Seb's one of the most popular drivers. Lance is probably the least popular driver. If the shoe's on the other foot, there's absolutely no way there's this same level of outrage. And honestly, like the way I've seen certain minority of Vettel fans, right, conduct themselves, the horrible nastiness I've seen them spewing at Lance after this, Seb would be fucking embarrassed if he could hear what a lot of people have been saying about Lance after him doing a perfectly good defensive car positioning move. That, sure, Seb's not going to be happy about it. Of course not. He wants to make the move. But there's nothing wrong with what he did. It's embarrassing. 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 Seb would be embarrassed. Seb would be embarrassed if he saw the way certain people conducted themselves in his name. That's probably why he's not on social media, because it's embarrassing. But anyway, so yeah, I don't have a problem. I get his teammates. Maybe, you know, they don't need to push so hard fighting for 1 point, but come on. Anyway, right. So that's. But all in all, actually, I think it's a really, you know what, like, you'd rather have good race pace than good quali pace. I think, again, Williams is probably the opposite of Aston Martin. Williams seems to have a bit better quali pace, but their race pace just doesn't seem to be there. Aston Martin, 10 and 11, considering, you know, they're ahead of Gasly, ahead of Bottas, ahead of Albon, ahead of the Haas. Like, I think, you know, not bad from Aston Martin. They can be pretty happy. But anyway. Right, that's Aston Martin done. Yeah, let's talk about Williams then. Obviously, the reverse. And you know what? Like, well, Albon, first of all, you know, just scraped into Q2 only because Mick Schumacher track extended as well. So he was quite lucky there. Alex had an okay race, a bit of a nothing race, really. Didn't have the pace to keep the Astons behind him, but did have the pace to keep Bottas behind him. Was running had a very nothing race, did Alex. But good mileage maybe to learn a bit more about the upgrade. That's the only positive, you know. So there's that. What I will say though, I want to give credit to Nicholas Latifi. Can we all give a round of applause? I'll be able to hear if you're not clapping. Can we all give a round of applause to Nicholas Latifi? Right. Did he qualify last? Yes. Did he finish not last? Also, yes. Now, right, okay, hear me out. So qualifying, let me check, hang on. Right, there we go. Fawat! Kyler just giving the Kimi Raikkonen Fawat in the chat. Right, okay, this is what I'm clapping. So, right, Latifi qualified 3.5 tenths off of Albon, which is considerably better than the norm. He's got the upgrade now, right? Both got the upgrades, and I think that's probably it's not the closest they've been in qualifying, but and obviously Latifi's out qualified Albon before in the rain, but you know I think that's an okay gap considering, right, the context of usually it's averaging like 7.5 tenths, right? In the race, like Latifi was on the back of that train with like Magnussen, hence why there was that, you know, there was that little coming together between him and K-Mag, which I think was a bit of a racing incident personally. I don't think there was too much in it either way. And yeah, like I don't think his pace was a million miles off of Alex. Looking at the splits, I think Latifi did I think the level of performance from Nicholas Latifi in this race, in dry and normal conditions, was his best dry and normal condition performance of the season by a reasonable margin. So credit where it is due to Nicholas Latifi. So I almost dropped my coffee all over the table. Yeah. And maybe hopefully it's a positive sign moving forwards. Obviously, we don't know about his future at the team. You would anticipate a lot of driver contracts will be announced during this summer break. So we will see if Hungary is I don't think he'll get replaced mid-season, but maybe it will be the last race before we know about his future. We'll see. We will see. Right, that's Williams done. Alpha Tauri. Such a shame for Yuki. Really good qualifying. Really bad qualifying for Pierre. Punted by Ocon. Wasn't able to showcase the performance I think he had. Alpha Tauri upgrades as well for this race, so they weren't really able to show it. Gasly, again, cocked up his move on Albon, which lost him like 3 positions. It made me kind of cringe a bit, because Gasly tried to make the move on Albon, cocked it up, had to go around the polystyrene blocks, lost like 3 positions, fighting his way back, and then he's fighting on the back of like Magnussen. And obviously because, you know, I imagine because he's a French driver, so the coverage covered him quite a bit, and he was like chasing Magnussen, I think. And then they were cutting to his family like, oh, they can celebrate a Gasly overtake. It's like, he just lost 3 positions. Like, he's not... he just lost 3 positions. You didn't mention it, and now it's like, oh, he's moving through the field. No, he got up. Yeah, look, it's not... It wasn't a great race for Pierre, but it's a shame that Luki wasn't able to show the potential pace that he seemed to have this weekend, so... But hopefully the AlphaTauri upgrade is bringing them back into this midfield fight, because they were a bit behind, weren't they? Definitely. Yuki's been very solid. Yeah, he's made his mistakes, but the pace, the out-and-out pace, the potential is 100% there. Not much more to say. Really. Not much more to say. And then finally, Alfa Romeo, the team with the least to say, I think. Bottas P14, Joe retiring in the end. He took out Schumacher, and Bottas just had the nothingest of races. The biggest highlight from Valtteri's race was his bucket hat, which I really liked. I never worn a bucket hat in my life, but that Circuit Paul Ricard bucket hat was lovely. Was lovely. Right. Oh yeah, I forgot about Haas, didn't I? Strategy. Haas could have actually had a good race if it wasn't for Leclerc crashing. Ferrari driver ruins Ferrari powered team's race because they both pitted. Could have worked out. Could have been genius, but they, you take that risk, didn't you? And unfortunately, it didn't pay off. So, and then he was fighting at the back, and yeah, Mick got punted by Joe, and Magnussen ended his running with Latifi. So, not much more to say. Right, okay, we are done. Hour 20 over. I have been waffling, haven't I? But yeah, thank you all for coming. Appreciate you taking the time. Hungarian Grand Prix next weekend. Pre-race stream. Probably Thursday. Video, not sure when. Haven't even started on it, to be honest. So, need to get working. But yeah. Thank you all for coming. Be good. Be happy. Be nice. Thank you to everyone who super chatted. Thank you, Grossick, Tom, Jiggy, Lil, Treban, Jessica, Benjamin, Natasha, Megan, Professor Zay, Tom, Winnie. Thank you all for coming. Elena, big up. And I'll see you on the next one. Ciao, adios. I am out of here. Goodbye. I am done. Goodbye. Farewell. Adios. Au revoir. Arrivederci. Bye.